Why does everyone always ignore the janitor? Raven Thorne stood in the morning light at Fort Bragg's shooting range. Gray-streaked hair pulled back in a messy bun, faded t-shirt hanging loose on her frame, worn boots that had seen better years. She gripped her mop with trembling hands, just another invisible worker, just another face nobody noticed. But there was something about her stillness that morning, something in the way she held herself, like she was waiting for something, or maybe remembering something. She didn't know that in exactly 18 minutes, everything would change. Captain Derek Morrison didn't see a person when he looked at her. He saw an obstruction. 6'3", bald head gleaming in the sun, muscles straining against his tactical shirt, Delta Force operator, the kind of man who believed rank and physical presence made him untouchable. "Get that trash away from the weapons, Grandma." His voice cracked across the range like a whip. Raven's hand trembled harder, but her breathing, perfectly controlled. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. A rhythm most people wouldn't recognize. A rhythm taught in very specific places, to very specific people. Only Major Amanda Chen noticed. Morrison closed the distance fast. His hand shot out, grabbed Raven's wrist, yanked it up hard enough to hurt. "I said move." And there it was, revealed in the harsh morning light, a tattoo on her forearm, faded with age, a serpent eating its tail, a black star in the center, the kind of ink that meant something to someone somewhere. "What's this?" Morrison's voice dripped with contempt, playing soldier with fake ink. Within seconds, 5 Delta Force operators surrounded her, phones out, cameras recording, live streaming to their followers, the pack mentality taking over, each one trying to outdo the last in their mockery. This was entertainment now, public humiliation, the kind that goes viral. Staff Sergeant Reeves stepped closer, tall, lean, the kind of man who studied military insignias as a hobby. "Stolen valor," he sneered. "That's jail time, cleaning lady." Specialist Marcus Webb positioned himself for the perfect camera angle. Stocky, known for cruel pranks, his phone already recording gold content. "This is going to blow up," he muttered. Jessica Hayes, intelligence specialist and social media maven, started her own stream. Blonde ponytail swinging. Tactical makeup perfect despite the morning's exercises. 3,000 followers watching live. "That's not even good ink work," she laughed. "Looks like something you'd get in a back alley for $20. Raven's trembling worsened, but watch her closely. Watch how she didn't pull away from Morrison's grip, didn't protest, didn't defend herself. She simply existed in that moment, with a stillness that seemed almost unnatural. Major Chen stepped forward. 5 years with the unit, combat experience in 3 different countries, her instincts prickling. Something about this situation felt wrong. The way Raven's eyes tracked each person without moving her head, the way her breathing remained perfectly controlled despite the harassment. These weren't the reactions of a frightened civilian. "I know exactly what it is," Reeves announced with authority. "Fake stolen valor crap. Probably saw it in some Vietnam movie and thought it would make her look tough. News flash, lady. Wearing military symbols you didn't earn is illegal." Morrison released Raven's wrist with a shove. She took a half step back, but even that movement was controlled, her worn combat boots finding perfect balance on the concrete. "You know what? I think we need to teach Grandma here a lesson about respect, about not pretending to be something you're not." "Just leave her alone, Morrison," Chen finally spoke up, her voice carrying the weight of her rank. "She's just trying to do her job." Morrison spun on her, jaw tight. "You defending stolen valor now, Major. This old bag is walking around with military ink she didn't earn. That disrespects every one of us who bled for our insignias." "You don't know that she didn't earn it," Chen countered. But her argument sounded weak even to her own ears. What were the odds that this trembling janitor was anything more than what she appeared? "Oh, please," Hayes laughed, still streaming to her followers. "Look at her. She can barely hold that cleaning rag steady. You think someone with those shaky hands ever held a weapon? This is pathetic." Webb had moved around for a different angle, nearly knocked over Raven's cleaning cart in his eagerness. Supplies scattered across the ground. Standard cleaning solutions, rags, and something else that caught Chen's eye for just a moment. Was that a specialized gun cleaning cloth? The kind that cost $50 and was used exclusively for precision rifle maintenance. "Pick up your mess," Morrison ordered, pointing at the scattered supplies. "And then I want you out of here. This is a restricted area for qualified personnel only." Raven slowly knelt, her movements deliberate as she began gathering her supplies. The tremor in her hands seemed more pronounced now, making the simple task appear almost pitiful. But Chen noticed something else. The way Raven's eyes swept the ground in a pattern. The way she positioned herself to keep all 5 operators in her peripheral vision while appearing to focus only on her task. "Actually," Morrison said, a cruel smile spreading across his face, "I've got a better idea. You want to wear military tattoos. You want to pretend you're some kind of warrior. Fine, let's see what you've got." He gestured toward the weapons rack. "Pick up a rifle, show us your warrior skills." The other operators laughed, harsh, mocking. This was going to be even better than they'd hoped. Watching the old cleaning lady try to handle a weapon she'd probably never seen outside of movies. "I don't think that's a good idea," Raven said quietly, still kneeling by her scattered supplies. "Oh, she speaks," Webb crowed. "Come on, Grandma, don't be shy. Morrison's giving you a chance to prove you're not completely full of it." "Stand up," Morrison commanded, his voice taking on the edge it had in combat situations. This wasn't a request anymore. That's an order. Raven's wrist beeped softly, a medical device most people wouldn't recognize, the kind developed for NASA astronauts, now adapted for patients with chronic nerve damage. In her pocket, medication rattled, neural inhibitor, nearly $1,000 per dose. The only thing that helped control tremors from combat-related nerve agent exposure. But no one noticed these high-tech medical details, so out of place for a simple janitor. She rose slowly, movements careful and measured. The morning sun caught her face, highlighting freckles across her nose and cheeks, making her appear almost vulnerable. But there was something in her eyes now, a flicker of something that made Chen take an involuntary step closer. "I really should get back to work," Raven said, her voice still soft, but carrying an undertone that hadn't been there before. "Work?" Morrison stepped into her personal space, using his significant height advantage to loom over her. "Your work is whatever I say it is right now, and I say your work is proving you have any right to wear that tattoo, unless you want me to report you for stolen valor." The threat hung in the air. Federal crime, prison time, public shame. Raven looked at him for a long moment, and then she said something that changed everything. "One shot." Her voice was steady now, quiet but steady. "I'll take one shot, then you leave me alone." Morrison laughed, loud, genuine. "Sure, Grandma, show us your warrior skills." The M24 rifle shook in her unsteady hands as she picked it up from the rack. The operators mocked everything. Her stance, her grip, the way she struggled with the weight. But Chen saw something else. The way Raven's eyes calculated distance without the scope. How her tremor followed a pattern, waiting for the still point between shakes. Morrison set up a target, 500 yards. "Make it interesting," he called out. "Show us what that fake tattoo bought you." Raven stood at the line, the rifle trembling in her grasp, looking every bit the frightened old woman they believed her to be. And then something shifted. Her breathing changed, still the same rhythm, but deeper now, more focused. The tremor in her hands continued, but watch closely. Watch how it follows a pattern like a wave, up and down, and right there, in the valley between peaks, a moment of absolute stillness. She took the shot. The sound cracked across the range. Birds scattered from nearby trees. The operators' laughter died in their throats. Because the target wasn't just hit, it was destroyed. Dead center, perfect shot. 500 yards with a rifle she'd held for 30 seconds, with hands that couldn't stop shaking. Morrison stood frozen, staring at the target, then at Raven, then back at the target. "Lucky shot," Webb said, but his voice had lost its confidence. Raven set the rifle down carefully, turned to walk away, but Morrison grabbed her arm again, harder this time. "Who are you? What do you see when you look at someone?" That's the question that should have been asked that morning, before the mockery, before the phones came out, before they turned a human being into entertainment for their followers. Because right now, standing in the aftermath of an impossible shot, Morrison was finally asking the right question, but maybe too late. "I'm the janitor," Raven said simply, trying to pull her arm free. But Morrison's grip tightened, his brain trying to process what he'd just witnessed. That shot, that's not possible with those hands. "You asked for one shot." Raven's voice was still quiet, but there was steel underneath now. "I gave you one shot, now let go." Chen stepped forward, her instincts screaming now. Morrison let her go. But he wasn't listening. The other operators had crowded closer, phones still recording, but their expressions had changed. Confusion replacing mockery, uncertainty replacing confidence. "Show me your tattoo again," Morrison demanded, yanking Raven's arm up into the light. The serpent eating its tail, the black star. Under the harsh morning sun, details became clearer. This wasn't amateur work. This was professional, military grade. The kind of ink done in very specific places, with very specific meaning. "Where did you get this?" Morrison's voice had lost its cruel edge. Now it was just confused, angry. "Who gave you this tattoo?" Raven met his eyes, and for just a moment Chen saw something in her expression. Something cold, something dangerous, like looking into the eyes of a predator that had been pretending to be prey. "Mogadishu," Raven said quietly, 1993. The words hung in the air like smoke. Reeves stepped back involuntarily. That's not possible. Women weren't in combat roles then. Women weren't in special operations. "You're right," Raven said. "Officially, we weren't." Morrison released her arm, took a step back. His face had gone pale, because if what she was implying was true, if she had been there, in Mogadishu, in '93, then that tattoo meant something very specific. Something that didn't officially exist. "You're lying," Hayes said, but her phone had lowered, the stream forgotten. "Am I?" Raven rolled down her sleeve, covering the tattoo. "You're the intelligence specialist, right? Look it up, Black Star Serpent. Ouroboros symbol, see what you find." "There's nothing to find," Reeves insisted, "because it doesn't exist." "Exactly." Raven picked up her mop, her hands trembling again. "It doesn't exist, I don't exist, and you never saw me." She turned to leave, but Chen blocked her path. "Wait, if you were there, if you were part of, whatever that was, why are you cleaning floors?" Raven looked at her, and Chen saw something in her eyes, sadness, deep, bone-tired sadness. Because that's what happens when you get too old for the work, too damaged, too broken. They find you a job where you can still be useful, still serve, even if nobody knows you're serving. "That's a lie," Morrison said, but his voice lacked conviction now. "Is it?" Raven gestured at her trembling hands. "You think I wanted this? You think I chose to shake like this? Nerve agent exposure, Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan, places I can't talk about, doing things I can't remember for a country that can't acknowledge I existed." Her voice cracked. "So yes, I clean floors, because it's all I'm good for now." The silence stretched, uncomfortable, heavy. Webb had stopped recording. For the first time that morning he looked uncertain. "I didn't mean, we didn't know." "You didn't ask," Chen said quietly, looking at each of her fellow operators. "You saw what you wanted to see, an old woman, trembling hands, stolen valor, easy target." She could still be lying, Hayes said, but she didn't sound convinced. Morrison stood frozen, his mind working through the implications. If Raven was telling the truth, if she had been part of classified operations, then what they'd just done, the mockery, the live streams, the public humiliation. It wasn't just wrong, it was potentially a security breach. "Delete the videos," he said suddenly. "All of them now." "What?" Webb looked at his phone. "But I've already got 300 views." "Delete them," Morrison's voice cracked like thunder. "That's an order, all phones, all streams, gone right now." The operators scrambled to comply, deleting videos, stopping streams. But Chen knew it was too late. The internet never forgets. Somewhere, someone had already downloaded, already shared, already made permanent what was supposed to be temporary entertainment. Raven watched them panic, and something like satisfaction crossed her face. "Don't worry," she said. "Nobody will care, just an old woman, just a janitor, nobody important." But the way she said it, like she knew exactly how unimportant she was, like she'd made peace with being invisible. Morrison opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I'm sorry." Two words hollow, inadequate. Raven just looked at him. "No, you're not, you're scared, there's a difference." She picked up her cleaning cart, started pushing it toward the facility buildings. "But you'll learn." "Learn what?" Chen called after her. Raven paused, looked back over her shoulder. "That the most dangerous people are the ones you never see coming." She disappeared into the building, leaving 5 elite operators standing in stunned silence on a shooting range, each one processing what had just happened, each one realizing they'd made a terrible mistake. But they didn't know the half of it. Because at that exact moment, in a windowless office deep inside Fort Bragg, a man was watching security footage of the entire incident, every moment captured in high definition. General Marcus Thorne, 4 stars on his collar, silver hair, weathered face, the kind of man who'd seen everything, done everything, survived everything. And on his forearm, hidden beneath his uniform sleeve, was a tattoo, a serpent eating its tail, a black star in the center. He picked up his phone, dialed a number that didn't officially exist. "We have a problem," he said when someone answered. "The Viper's been compromised." On the other end of the line, someone swore. "How bad?" Video went live. 5 operators, social media, could have been worse, could have been better. "What do you want to do?" General Thorne watched the footage again, watched his daughter stand in the middle of hostile operators, watched her take that impossible shot, watched her walk away with dignity intact. "Nothing," he said finally. "Let it play out." "You sure we could shut this down?" "No," the general's voice was firm. "She's been in the shadows long enough. Maybe it's time people remembered that not everyone who serves does it in uniform." He hung up, kept watching the footage, and felt something he hadn't felt in years, pride mixed with sorrow, because his daughter was the best sniper he'd ever trained, the best operator he'd ever worked with, and absolutely nobody knew she existed. Back on the range, Morrison was gathering his team. "Meeting. Now, conference room. We need to talk about what just happened." They filed into the building, each operator processing, each one feeling something unfamiliar, shame, real shame, not the performative kind, the kind that sits in your gut and refuses to leave. Chen was the last to enter. She paused at the doorway, looked back at the range, at the target still hanging 500 yards away, perfect hole dead center. "Who are you, Raven Thorne?" she whispered. If only she knew the answer to that question, because Raven Thorne wasn't just a janitor. She was a ghost, a legend, a myth walking among them in plain sight, the woman they called Viper in the classified files, the sniper with 63 confirmed kills across 4 continents, the operative who'd been declared dead in official records, the woman who'd been invisible for so long, she'd almost forgotten how to be seen. What makes a person invisible? Is it the uniform they wear, the job they do, the way they move through the world, or is it something simpler? Is it just that nobody bothers to look? Raven pushed her cleaning cart through the corridors of Fort Bragg. The wheels squeaked. Her hands trembled. She moved like a ghost through the facility, past offices where officers planned operations, past training rooms where soldiers prepared for deployment, past cafeterias and barracks and armories. Nobody looked at her. Nobody ever looked at her. And that was exactly how it was supposed to be. In Conference Room B, Morrison faced his team. 5 operators, 5 of the military's best, all of them looking shaken. "We screwed up," Morrison said. Simple, direct. "We saw what we wanted to see, we made assumptions. We turned a human being into entertainment, and we might have just compromised a classified operative." "We don't know that she's telling the truth," Hayes protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "No," Chen agreed. "We don't know, that's the problem. We didn't know anything about her. We didn't ask. We didn't care. We just saw an old woman with a tattoo and decided she was fair game." Webb stared at his hands. "I deleted the video, but people already watched it, already commented, already shared it." "How many views?" Morrison asked. 300 when I deleted it. Could be thousands by now." Morrison swore. "If she's real, if she's actually classified, we just exposed her face to thousands of people. We just compromised her cover. We just potentially ruined years of careful positioning." "Or," Reeves said slowly, "she's a very good liar who saw an opportunity to get out of trouble for stolen valor." The room fell silent because he was right. They didn't know, they couldn't know, not without verification, not without clearance, not without asking questions they weren't authorized to ask. "So what do we do?" Hayes asked. Morrison looked at each of them. "We find out the truth, quietly, carefully, and if she's who she says she is, if we just humiliated a genuine hero, then we make it right." "How?" Chen asked. "I don't know yet, but we owe her that much." Meanwhile, 3 floors below, Raven cleaned an office that didn't officially exist. The door was marked Storage B, but inside was something very different. Computers, secure communications, files that would never see daylight. She worked methodically, dusting, vacuuming, emptying trash bins. Her hands shook constantly, but her eyes missed nothing, reading documents upside down, memorizing passwords written on sticky notes, cataloging security vulnerabilities. Because that was her real job, not cleaning, intelligence gathering. The janitor was the perfect cover. Nobody noticed her. Nobody watched her. She had access to every room, every office, every classified document left carelessly on a desk. She was invisible by design. Her medical device beeped softly, heart rate elevated, stress response. She pulled out her medication, swallowed a pill dry. The neural inhibitor would help for a few hours, until the tremors came back worse than before. This was her life now, a body that betrayed her, hands that couldn't hold steady, a nervous system damaged by exposure to chemical weapons in a war most people didn't know happened, in a place the government would never acknowledge, doing work that would never appear in her service record. Because officially she'd never served, officially she didn't exist. Women weren't in special operations in 1993. Women weren't snipers. Women weren't sent into Mogadishu with Delta Force operators who also didn't officially exist. But unofficially, that was a different story. The door opened. Raven didn't look up, just kept dusting the desk, but her entire body tensed, ready. "Hello, Raven." That voice, she knew that voice. Hadn't heard it in 6 years, but some voices you never forget. She turned slowly, and there he was, General Marcus Thorne, 4 stars on his collar, authority in every line of his body, her father, though nobody at Fort Bragg knew that connection. Nobody could know. "Sir," she said quietly, keeping her role, the janitor addressing a general. "We need to talk." "About what, sir?" About the incident this morning, about the video, about the fact that your cover is now compromised. Raven set down her duster. I handled it. You took a 500-yard shot with unstable hands in front of 5 operators with cameras. That's not handling it. That's showing off. They asked for a shot. I gave them a shot. You gave them evidence. You gave them questions. You gave them a reason to dig into who you really are. Raven met her father's eyes. Maybe it's time. Time for what? Time to stop being invisible. Time to stop pretending I don't exist. Time to stop cleaning floors while younger operators mock what I've forgotten more about than they'll ever learn. General Thorne closed the distance, looked at his daughter, saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the pain, the frustration. You knew the deal when you took this assignment. I took this assignment because I was too damaged for field work, too unstable, too much of a liability. So you gave me a mop and told me to gather intelligence while pretending to be nobody. And you've been excellent at it. I've been miserable at it. Her voice cracked. I watch these kids train, these operators, playing soldier, treating it like a game, and I can't say anything, can't teach them, can't show them what real combat looks like, because I'm just the janitor, just the invisible woman who cleans their mess. Raven. They mocked me today, Dad, called me grandma, accused me of stolen valor, live-streamed my humiliation to thousands of people, and I had to stand there and take it. Because that's the job, be invisible, be underestimated, be nothing. General Thorne reached out, gripped her trembling shoulder. You're not nothing. Then what am I? Because I don't know anymore. I used to be Viper, the best sniper in the unit. 63 confirmed kills, 4 continents, operations that changed the course of wars. And now I'm the cleaning lady with shaky hands that teenagers make fun of on social media. You're still Viper, the mission just changed. No, Raven pulled away. Viper died in Kabul 7 years ago, nerve agent exposure, medical discharge, decorated in a ceremony that never happened, buried with honors in a grave that doesn't exist. Raven Thorne the janitor, she's all that's left. The silence stretched between them, father and daughter, general and operative, 2 people carrying secrets that could never be spoken. I'm pulling you out, General Thorne said finally. What? This assignment is over. Your cover is compromised. It's not safe for you to continue. Where will you send me? Bitterness in her voice. Another base, another mop, another decade of being invisible. No, I'm sending you home. Medical retirement, full benefits, you've served enough. Raven stared at him. I don't want to go home, I want to do the work, I want to matter. You do matter. Not like this, not as the janitor, not as the joke. Her hands shook harder. I need to serve. It's all I know how to do. Without it, I'm just a broken woman with trembling hands and nightmares. General Thorne looked at his daughter, saw the soldier underneath the janitor's uniform, saw the woman who'd given everything for her country, who'd sacrificed her health, her identity, her very existence, and was still asking to give more. There might be another option, he said slowly. What option? Training, not field work, not intelligence gathering, teaching. We have young operators, talented, skilled, but they don't understand what real combat looks like. They don't know what it means to operate in the gray spaces where officially sanctioned becomes officially denied. Raven's eyes sharpened. You want me to train them? I want you to teach them that strength comes in many forms, that the most dangerous operator isn't always the strongest or fastest, that sometimes the person everyone underestimates is the one you should fear most. And you think they'll listen to the cleaning lady? After today, General Thorne smiled slightly. I think they'll have questions, big questions, and you're the only one who can answer them. A spark flickered in Raven's eyes, the first real light he'd seen there in years. A training position. Classified, off books, Viper program, teaching unconventional warfare to operators who need to learn how to be invisible, how to be underestimated, how to turn weakness into strength. Why now? Why after 7 years of making me push a mop? Because those operators today, they represent a problem. They're good, maybe the best technically, but they've forgotten humility. They've forgotten that the enemy isn't always obvious. They need to learn what you learned. That judgment can be a fatal mistake. Raven was quiet for a long moment, processing, considering. I'd need authority, real authority, not just teaching, not just talking. I'd need to be able to put them through real scenarios, real pressure. You'd have it, full autonomy, my backing. And if they refuse to learn from a janitor? General Thorne's smile widened. Then they fail, and failure in training is better than failure in the field. Raven looked at her father, at the general who'd trained her, who'd sent her into hell repeatedly, who'd stood at her bedside when the nerve damage diagnosis came through, who'd offered her this humiliating assignment because it was the only way to keep her in service. When do I start? Today, right now. Conference room B5 operators who need to learn a very important lesson. What lesson? That they sh. How do you teach humility to people who believe they're the best? That was the question facing Raven as she stood outside conference room B. She could hear voices inside. Morrison's team, still processing, still trying to understand what had happened that morning. She looked down at her trembling hands, at the medical device on her wrist, at the faded gray t-shirt and worn boots. This was her uniform now, not tactical gear, not combat dress, cleaning clothes, the costume of invisibility. But maybe that was exactly what made her dangerous. She pushed the door open, walked in without knocking. 5 elite operators looked up, surprise, confusion. Morrison half rose from his chair. "Ma'am, this is a private meeting." "Sit down, Captain." Raven's voice had changed, no longer soft, no longer uncertain. This was command voice, the kind you don't question. "We have things to discuss." Morrison sat slowly, his eyes narrowing. Chen leaned forward. "Raven, we were just talking about you." "I know." Raven set her cleaning cart aside, walked to the head of the table. Her hands shook. Her gait was unsteady, but her presence filled the room. "You were trying to figure out if I'm real or fake, classified operative or stolen valor, danger or joke." "Are you going to tell us?" Hayes asked. "I'm going to show you." Raven pulled up her sleeve, revealed the tattoo fully. "This symbol, our Ouroboros, the serpent eating its tail, know what it means." Reeves spoke up. "Eternal cycle, death and rebirth, but militarily, I've never seen it used as an operational insignia." "That's because it's not operational, it's personal." 67 people received this tattoo. Between 1991 and 2002, 67 operators who worked in places we weren't supposed to be, doing things we weren't supposed to do, for missions that will never be acknowledged. "Where are they now?" Webb asked. "These 67 people." Raven's expression went cold. 43 are dead. 17 are medically retired with injuries or conditions that ended their careers. 4 are still active. And 3, she paused. 3 vanished into deep cover so thoroughly that even their own families believe them dead. The silence was heavy, uncomfortable. "And you," Morrison asked quietly, "which category do you fall into?" "All of them." Raven sat down, her hands flat on the table, trembling. "I was declared KIA in 2018, Kabul operation, nerve agent exposure, 6 weeks in a coma, 8 months in recovery, medical discharge with full honors, buried in Arlington in an empty casket." "But you're sitting here," Chen said. "Am I?" Raven smiled, a sad, broken smile. "Look at me, really look. Do you see a soldier, or do you see a janitor with a medical condition?" Hayes shifted uncomfortably. "Why are you telling us this?" "Because you need to understand something about strength, about power, about what makes someone dangerous." Raven stood, walked to the window, looked out at the range where she'd taken that shot. You five, you're Delta Force, Special Operations, the best of the best. You can run farther, shoot straighter, fight harder than 99% of people alive. Is there a point to this? Morrison asked. The point is that you're predictable. You see the world in terms of physical capability, strong versus weak, capable versus incapable, useful versus useless. She turned to face them. You looked at me this morning and saw weakness, trembling hands, gray hair, worn clothes, and you judged me, mocked me, dismissed me, because I didn't fit your definition of dangerous. You're saying we should have known, Reeves challenged. How you look like. Like what? An old woman, a janitor, someone beneath your notice. Raven's voice cut like a knife. That's exactly my point. You made assumptions based on appearance, and in the field, that mistake gets you killed. She moved to the wall display, pulled up a map of Afghanistan. 2011, Kandahar Province, forward operating base under siege. Insurgents had infiltrated the local workforce. Cooks, cleaners, maintenance workers, people we didn't watch because they weren't threats, except one of them was. Former Spetsnaz, 30 years older than anyone expected, looked like somebody's grandmother. Killed 16 soldiers before anyone realized she was the threat. The operators sat forward, listening now. 2015, Baghdad, Green Zone, suicide bomber got past 3 checkpoints. Know how? She was in a wheelchair, elderly, trembling, appeared completely harmless. Killed 37 people including 2 senators. Raven turned to face them. 2017, Benghazi, hostage situation. Target was being held by a warlord, 20 armed guards, fortified compound. Rescue team couldn't get close. Know who went in? An 80-year-old woman selling bread. Walked right through the front gate. Guards didn't even search her. She was harmless, until she wasn't. Morrison's face had gone pale. Those are real operations. Classified operations, but yes, real, and the lesson is simple. Your enemy isn't always young, isn't always strong, isn't always obvious. The most dangerous operator is the one you never see coming, the one you dismiss, the one you underestimate. Chen stood, walked closer to Raven. So that's what you are, the one we didn't see coming. I'm the one you didn't see at all. I've been here 6 months, cleaning your offices, emptying your trash, standing 3 feet away while you discussed classified operations. And not one of you ever looked at me. Not one of you ever wondered who I was, what I heard, what I knew. The implications settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Jesus, Webb whispered, you've been gathering intelligence this whole time. It's what I do, what I've always done, become invisible, become underestimated, become the person nobody bothers to watch. And then, Raven's smile was cold. Then you see everything, hear everything, know everything. Hayes had gone white. The office, the one marked Storage B. Not actually storage, Tactical Operations Center. And yes, I clean it 3 times a week, while reading every classified document you leave on your desks. Morrison slammed his hand on the table. That's a security breach, a massive violation. Is it? Raven's voice was calm. Or is it exactly what I was assigned to do? Test your security, identify vulnerabilities, find the gaps in your protocols. She looked at each of them. You failed, every one of you, because you never imagined the janitor might be the spy. Reeves stood abruptly. This is insane. You're telling us you've been spying on us, on this entire facility. I'm telling you that I've been doing my job, which is showing you where you're vulnerable, how an enemy could infiltrate, what they could learn if you're not careful. Chen's mind was racing. The cleaning cloth in your cart, the specialized rifle maintenance cloth, that was a test too. Everything is a test. The medical device on my wrist that's actually a data collection tool. The medication in my pocket that's actually a micro camera. The mop handle that unscrews into a weapon. The cleaning cart with false bottoms and hidden compartments. I walk through this facility every day with enough surveillance equipment to compromise every operation you run. and nobody notices. The silence was absolute. 5 elite operators realizing they'd been played, completely, thoroughly. "So what now?" Morrison asked, his voice tight. "You've proven your point. We underestimated you. We made assumptions. We failed the test. What happens next?" Raven walked back to the head of the table. "Now you learn you're being reassigned, all 5 of you. New unit, classified, called Viper." "Viper," Hayes repeated. "Named after me, because I'm going to train you, teach you everything I know about operating in the gray spaces, about being invisible, about turning weakness into strength, about never making the assumptions that got you compromised this morning." Morrison shook his head. "You expect us to learn from a janitor?" "No." Raven's smile was dangerous. "I expect you to learn from a ghost, from someone who's been dead for 7 years but is still more effective than 5 Delta Force operators combined. From someone who proved this morning that trembling hands can still hit targets 500 yards away. From someone who's been watching you for 6 months while you never bothered to watch back." She placed a folder on the table. "Personnel files, each of you, not the official versions, the real ones, every vulnerability, every weakness, every secret you thought was hidden. Know how I got this information? Because you talked, in offices I cleaned, in training rooms where I emptied trash, in cafeterias where I bussed tables. You talked like I wasn't there, because to you, I wasn't." Webb reached for the folder, opened it, his face went white. "How did you?" "I listen, I watch, I document. It's what makes me dangerous. Not strength, not speed, not youth, but attention, patience, the ability to be invisible while seeing everything." Morrison stood, walked to Raven. They were nearly the same height, though he outweighed her by 100 pounds. "You're asking us to learn from someone we humiliated this morning, someone we mocked, someone we live-streamed for entertainment." "No." Raven's voice was steel. "I'm ordering you. General Thorne's orders. You have 2 choices. Join Viper and learn, or wash out of special operations entirely. Because the military doesn't need operators who are great at shooting but terrible at thinking." Chen stepped forward. "I'll do it. I want to learn." Raven nodded. "Good, that's one." Slowly the others followed. Webb, Hayes, Reeves, each one agreeing. Not because they wanted to, but because they had no choice. Morrison was last. He stared at Raven for a long moment. "I was wrong this morning about you, about what you represented, and I'm sorry." "Are you?" Raven's eyes were hard. "Or are you just sorry you got caught? Sorry your video went viral? Sorry I wasn't actually the easy target you thought?" "All of it," Morrison said honestly. "All of the above. I saw what I wanted to see, made assumptions, treated another human being like garbage for entertainment, and I'm genuinely sorry." Raven searched his face, looking for sincerity, finding it. "Apology noted, but not accepted. Not yet. You want my forgiveness? Earn it. Learn what I'm going to teach you. Become better than you are. Show me that this morning meant something, that you actually learned something." She picked up her cleaning cart. "Training starts tomorrow, 500, briefing room. Come dressed like operators, leave as ghosts. You're going to learn how to be invisible, how to be underestimated, how to turn your greatest weakness into your greatest strength." "What's the first lesson?" Chen asked. Raven paused at the door, looked back. "The first lesson is simple. Everyone you meet knows something you don't. Everyone you dismiss might be the most dangerous person in the room. And the moment you think you know everything, that's the moment you know nothing." She walked out, leaving 5 operators sitting in stunned silence, processing, understanding, beginning to realize just how much they had to learn. And in his office, General Thorne watched the security feed, watched his daughter walk away from the conference room, and smiled. Viper was back, not in the field, not with a rifle, but in the way that mattered most: teaching, shaping, creating the next generation of operators who understood that true strength wasn't always visible, that power didn't always announce itself, that the most dangerous person was the one you never saw coming. His phone rang, secure line. "How did it go?" the voice asked. "Better than expected. She's got 5 recruits. They're going to learn. And if they don't, then they wash out. We don't need operators who can't learn humility." "What about her? How is she really doing?" General Thorne looked at the screen, at his daughter's trembling hands as she pushed her cart down the corridor. "She's doing what she's always done, serving, fighting, refusing to quit even when her body has given up." He paused. "She's my daughter. Quitting isn't in her DNA." "The nerve damage, is it getting worse?" "The doctors say yes, but she says no. And with Raven, I've learned to trust her judgment over medical opinion." "How long does she have before the tremors become too severe?" "Unknown, could be months, could be years, but she's not wasting whatever time she has left. She's building something, a program, a legacy, a way to pass on everything she learned." "The Viper program." "Yes, and it's going to change how we train operators, how we think about capability, how we define dangerous." "Because of a janitor with trembling hands." "No," General Thorne's voice was firm. "Because of the most lethal sniper I've ever known, who happens to clean floors but never stopped being deadly." He hung up, kept watching his daughter on the screen, watched her disappear into a storage room, emerge minutes later with cleaning supplies, resume her route through the facility. Still invisible to most, still underestimated by many, still the most dangerous person walking these halls. Because that's what Viper had always been, what she'd always be, until her last breath. The woman nobody saw coming. What does it mean to be a ghost? The question echoed through Raven's mind as she lay awake that night. 3 a.m., the hour when demons visit, when memories surface, when the past refuses to stay buried. Her small apartment off base, Spartan, functional, a mattress on the floor because standing furniture made her nervous, clear sight lines to all entrances, no clutter, nothing that couldn't be abandoned in 60 seconds. The habits of a life lived in motion, always ready to run, always ready to fight, even now, even here, where running and fighting were no longer her job. Her hands trembled in the darkness. The medication had worn off hours ago. The neural inhibitor only worked for so long before her damaged nervous system reasserted control, before the shaking came back, worse than before, always worse after the medication faded. She stared at the ceiling, counted the cracks, mapped the patterns, anything to keep her mind occupied, anything to avoid the dreams. Because the dreams were worse than the tremors. In dreams she was whole again, steady hands, clear mind, perfect shots, missions executed flawlessly, and then she'd wake up, feel the shaking, remember that version of herself was dead, gone, buried in an empty casket 7 years ago. Raven Thorne, the sniper, had died. What remained was something else, someone else, a ghost wearing her face. Her phone buzzed. Secure line, she answered without looking at the screen. "Thorne." "Can't sleep," her father's voice, gentle, concerned. "Could you, knowing what's coming tomorrow?" "Probably not." A pause. "Are you ready for this, training them?" "I don't know, they're good operators, skilled, experienced, but they're also arrogant, dismissive. They see the world in black and white, strong and weak, capable and broken. So change how they see." "That's not a small ask, Dad." "Nothing about you has ever been small, Raven." His voice carried weight, pride. "You've done impossible things, survived impossible situations, adapted when others would have quit. You can do this too." "What if I fail? What if they don't learn?" "Then you fail, and you try again. That's what you've always done." Raven was quiet. Her hand found the tattoo on her forearm, traced the serpent, the eternal cycle, death and rebirth. "Do you ever regret it, training me, sending me into those situations, turning me into Viper?" "Every day," honesty in his voice. "And never because you were magnificent, are magnificent, even now, even broken. You're still the best operator I've ever known. I can't hold a coffee cup steady. And yet you hit targets 500 yards away. Raven, capability isn't about what you can't do. It's about what you can still do despite what you've lost. She closed her eyes. I'm scared, Dad, scared that I'm not enough anymore, that these operators will see through me. See the broken woman underneath the legend. See that I'm held together with medication and stubbornness. Good. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Overconfidence is what gets you killed. You're scared, use it, channel it, let it drive you to be better. You sound like a fortune cookie. He laughed, genuine, warm. Your mother used to say the same thing. God, I miss her. Raven's mother, dead 15 years, cancer, the only enemy they couldn't defeat. She'd hate what I've become. No, she'd be proud just like I am. Proud of a janitor. Proud of a survivor. Proud of someone who keeps serving even when service costs everything. Proud of my daughter who refuses to quit. They sat in silence for a moment, the comfortable quiet of family, of shared understanding. Get some sleep, General Thorne said finally. Tomorrow is important. Tomorrow is terrifying. Same thing, he hung up. Raven set down the phone, looked at her trembling hands. Tomorrow she'd face 5 operators who'd mocked her, who'd dismissed her, who'd live-streamed her humiliation. And she was supposed to teach them, guide them, transform them into something better. The question was, could she? Morning came too fast, 500, briefing room. Raven arrived early, set up the space. No cleaning cart today, no mop. This was different, this was official. She wore BDUs, battle dress uniform, first time in 7 years. The fabric felt strange, foreign, like wearing someone else's skin. Her name tape said THORNE. Her rank insignia showed Major, a rank most people at Fort Bragg didn't know she held. Because officially she'd never served. Officially she didn't exist. The door opened. Morrison entered, stopped cold, stared at her. Major, his voice carried confusion. Captain Morrison, she gestured to a seat, sit down. He sat, eyes tracking her, reassessing. Yesterday she'd been the janitor, today she was a superior officer. The cognitive dissonance was visible on his face. The others filed in. Chen, Webb, Hayes, Reeves, each one stopping, starring, processing this new version of Raven Thorne. Welcome to Viper, Raven said when they were all seated. For the next 90 days I own you, your time, your training, your mistakes. You're going to learn things that aren't in manuals, things that can't be taught in traditional settings, things that will make you question everything you thought you knew about special operations. What makes you qualified to teach us? Reeves asked, challenging testing. Fair question. Raven pulled up a screen. This is my service record, the real one, not the sanitized version in official files, not the fake cover story, the actual truth. The screen filled with operations, dates, locations, mission parameters, 63 confirmed kills, 4 continents, operations in Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and a dozen other places they couldn't name, commendations they couldn't acknowledge, medals they couldn't wear. Webb leaned forward. This is impossible. Women weren't in these units during these dates. Officially, you're right. Officially, this never happened. Officially, I was never there. Raven's voice was steady. But unofficially, I was everywhere, doing everything, being exactly what the mission required. Hayes studied the screen, her intelligence background analyzing. Some of these operations, I've read about them, different reports, official records, none mention a female operative. That's the point. I was the ghost, the shadow, the operator nobody remembered seeing, because remembering me would mean acknowledging I existed, and I couldn't exist, not in those units, not in those roles, not during those years. Morrison's expression had changed, respect replacing skepticism. Why didn't you tell us this yesterday? Would you have believed me, or would you have demanded proof, Evidence, documentation, things I can't provide because they don't officially exist. She shut off the screen. I showed you what I showed you, made you feel what I feel every day, being dismissed, being underestimated, being invisible. That was calculated, Chen said slowly. The whole thing, the trembling, the vulnerability, even the shot. You wanted us to see you as weak first, so the reveal would hit harder. No, Raven's voice was firm. The trembling is real, the medication is real, the nerve damage is real. I'm not pretending to be broken, I am broken. What I'm not is useless. There's a difference. She walked to the window. You five represent a problem in modern special operations. You're technically proficient, physically capable, tactically sound, but you lack something critical. You lack the ability to see beyond surface presentations, to recognize threats that don't announce themselves, to operate in spaces where the rules are unclear and the enemy is unexpected. So what are you going to teach us? Webb asked. I'm going to teach you to be ghosts, to be invisible, to operate in plain sight while nobody notices, to turn your assumed weaknesses into actual strengths, to survive situations where your training, your muscles, your weapons can't help you. How? Morrison asked. Raven turned. By breaking you first, completely, thoroughly, until you understand that everything you think you know about being an operator is wrong, or at least incomplete. She pulled up a new screen. Your first assignment, you have 48 hours. I want detailed profiles on every person who works in this facility. Janitors, kitchen staff, administrative workers, security guards, maintenance crews, everyone who isn't a soldier but has access to this base. That's hundreds of people, Hayes protested. Yes, and somewhere in those hundreds is a foreign intelligence operative. Planted, embedded, gathering information. Your job is to find them. How do you know there's an operative? Reeves challenged. Raven smiled. Cold, dangerous. Because I'm the operative and I've been here 6 months, gathering intelligence, documenting security failures, identifying vulnerabilities, and not one of you noticed. So find me, figure out how I did it, understand the methods. Then we'll talk about how to stop someone else from doing the same thing. The operators looked at each other, understanding dawning. This wasn't traditional training. This wasn't shooting and tactics and physical conditioning. This was something else entirely. You want us to learn by hunting you, Morrison clarified. I want you to learn by failing to hunt me, because you will fail at first. You'll make assumptions, follow obvious leads, look in predictable places, and I'll be 3 steps ahead the entire time, because that's what a real ghost does, stays ahead, stays invisible, stays alive. Chen stood. This is psychological warfare against us. No, Raven's expression softened slightly. This is preparation. The psychological warfare happens when you're in the field, when the enemy is hunting you, when your life depends on being able to disappear, to adapt, to survive despite impossible odds. I'm giving you a safe space to learn those skills, to fail without dying, to grow without paying the ultimate price. And if we can't find you, Webb asked, if we fail this assignment, then you fail the program. Because if you can't identify a threat when you know it exists, when you're specifically looking for it, how will you survive when you don't know the threat is there? When you're not looking, when the enemy is someone you've dismissed as harmless. The weight of her words settled over them. This was real, serious. Not a game, not theater. This was training that could mean the difference between life and death in the field. Why are you doing this? Morrison asked quietly. Really, beyond the official mission, beyond the assignment. Why put yourself through teaching us when you could take your medical retirement and rest? Raven looked at him, and for a moment her mask slipped. They saw the pain underneath, the exhaustion, the cost of decades spent in shadows. Because 43 of my brothers and sisters are dead, because I've attended too many funerals for operators who died because they weren't prepared for the real world, because the enemy we face now isn't the enemy we trained to fight, And because someone needs to teach you that survival isn't about being the strongest or fastest, it's about being the smartest, the most adaptable, the most unexpected. She walked to the door, paused. You have 48 hours. Find me. Understand my methods. Prove you're worthy of learning what I have to teach. Or go back to your regular units and forget this conversation ever happened. One question, Chen called out. Raven looked back. The shot yesterday, 500 yards, trembling hands, how? Raven's smile was genuine this time. That's exactly the kind of question I'm going to teach you to answer, because it's not about how, it's about why you assumed I couldn't, why you saw trembling hands and concluded incompetence, why your brain made connections that weren't true. Fix that. Fix how you see the world. Then you'll understand how I made that shot, and more importantly, you'll understand how to make your own impossible shots when the situation demands it. She left them sitting in the briefing room. 5 elite operators facing a challenge they'd never trained for. Hunt the ghost, find the invisible, catch the uncatchable. And they had 48 hours to do what dozens of intelligence agencies had failed to do over decades. Find Raven Thorn when she didn't want to be found. The game had begun, and Viper was already winning. What separates survival from death in the field? It's not always skill, not always strength, not always preparation. Sometimes it's just the ability to see what others miss, to recognize the threat hiding in plain sight, to understand that danger doesn't always announce itself. That was the lesson, the one Raven needed these operators to learn, not intellectually, not theoretically, but viscerally, in their bones, in their gut, in the place where instinct lives. 48 hours had passed. The operators gathered in the briefing room, exhausted, frustrated, each one carrying thick files, surveillance photos, interview transcripts, hours of investigation. Raven walked in at exactly 500. On time, as always, carrying a cup of coffee in trembling hands. She wore her janitor uniform again, faded gray t-shirt, worn boots, the disguise that had fooled them for 6 months. Report, she said simply. Morrison stood, dark circles under his eyes. We've documented every civilian employee on base, 347 people, cross-referenced backgrounds, checked references, analyzed patterns, interviewed coworkers. And we can't definitively identify you as the threat. Every employee has legitimate reasons for being here, legitimate background checks, normal behavioral patterns. Exactly. Raven set down her coffee. That's the point. A real operative doesn't stand out, doesn't wave red flags, doesn't give you easy answers. They blend, they become normal, they become invisible. Chen presented next. We tracked your movements for the past 2 days. You maintained your regular schedule, cleaned offices, emptied trash, followed your normal routine, but she paused. We found anomalies, times when you should have been in one location but were seen in another, gaps in your timeline that don't match your cleaning schedule. Good, what else? Hayes pulled up a screen. We analyzed the cleaning supplies in your cart, found specialized equipment hidden inside standard containers, a micro camera disguised as an air freshener, a data collection device built into your medical monitor, encrypted communication tools hidden in your medication bottles. Better keep going. Webb stood. We interviewed people who work near you, most barely remember you. Those who do describe you as quiet, polite, forgettable. But one kitchen worker mentioned that your hands only shake when people are watching. When you think you're alone, they're steady. Raven's expression didn't change. Is that true? We reviewed security footage, slowed it down, analyzed frame by frame, and Webb's right. The tremor follows a pattern. It's worse when you're being observed, almost non-existent when you think you're alone. The shaking is real. The nerve damage is real, but you've learned to control it, to exaggerate it, to use it as part of your disguise. Interesting theory. Raven's voice gave nothing away. Anything else? Reeves was last. We went back through 6 months of security logs, every day, every hour, tracking your access to different areas, and we found something. You clean the classified operations center 3 times per week, always at the same time, always following the same route. But on 17 separate occasions, you deviated, spent extra time in specific offices. And those offices, they all had active operations running, sensitive intelligence, documents that shouldn't have been accessible to civilian staff. So what's your conclusion? Morrison stood again. Our conclusion is that you've been conducting a masterclass in infiltration. You chose a cover that makes you invisible, used a legitimate medical condition as part of your disguise, positioned yourself with access to sensitive areas, built relationships that give you credibility, and spent 6 months gathering intelligence while every single person on this base walked past you without a second thought. And the question is, Raven prompted, the question is how we stop someone else from doing the same thing. Good question. Anyone have an answer? Chen spoke up. We can't, not completely, because the fundamental problem isn't the methods, it's our mindset. We see janitors and kitchen staff and maintenance workers as background, as non-threats, as people beneath our notice. And that assumption, that's the vulnerability, that's the gap that someone like you exploits. So fix it, Raven challenged. How? We can't treat every civilian employee like a potential enemy. That's paranoia. That destroys morale and operational efficiency. You're right, you can't, but you can do something else. Raven walked to the window. You can see them, really see them, not as background, not as invisible, as people with stories, with histories, with reasons for being where they are. Get curious, ask questions, build relationships, not because you suspect them, but because they're human beings worthy of your attention. She turned back. Know what would have exposed me faster than any investigation? If even one of you had actually talked to me, not about work, not about facilities, about me, about my life, about my story, because maintaining a cover requires lies, and lies require maintenance. The more you talk, the more you have to remember, the more chances for inconsistencies, for mistakes. Morrison nodded slowly. So the solution to invisible threats is to make everyone visible. Exactly. You don't need more security, more surveillance, more protocols. You need more humanity, more connection, more attention to the people who make your operations possible. Hayes looked troubled. But that's a huge cultural shift. We're trained to focus on the mission, on the objective, not on the support staff. And that training makes you vulnerable, because the enemy knows you're not looking. They know you're focused on obvious threats, on soldiers, on operators, on people who look dangerous. So they send someone who doesn't, someone invisible, someone like me. The silence stretched, heavy with understanding, with recognition of failure. Did we pass? Webb asked quietly. That depends. Did you learn? Yes. What did you learn? Webb thought carefully. I learned that I'm blind, that I walk through this facility every day seeing only what I expect to see, that I've dismissed hundreds of people as irrelevant, and that any one of them could be the most dangerous person here. Raven nodded. Good start. She walked to the head of the table. Here's what happens next. For the next 90 days, each of you will work undercover, not as operators, as support staff. Hayes, you're in the kitchen. Webb, maintenance. Chen, administrative assistant. Reeves, security guard. Morrison, janitor. You want us to be you? Morrison asked. I want you to experience what I experience, being invisible, being dismissed, being treated as less than. And I want you to see how much access you actually have, how much you could learn, how vulnerable this facility really is. And the goal, Chen asked. The goal is perspective, empathy, understanding. You need to know what it feels like to be the person everyone ignores, because only then will you understand why that person makes the perfect spy, the perfect infiltrator, the perfect ghost. Hayes shifted uncomfortably. This feels like punishment for how we treated you. No, Raven's voice was firm. This is education. Punishment would be ending your careers, exposing your failure, letting you continue as you are. This is giving you the tools to be better, to see better, to survive situations where your technical skills won't save you. She pulled up a new screen. Each of you will maintain your cover for 30 days. During that time, you'll document everything: who talks to you, who ignores you, what information you can access, what vulnerabilities you identify. At the end of 30 days, you'll report back, and we'll analyze what you learned. What if we get caught? Reeves asked. You won't. I've arranged everything. False identities, background checks, cover stories. As far as anyone knows, your new civilian hires. Regular employees, nobody important. Morrison stood, walked to Raven. They faced each other. Two warriors, two different generations, two different kinds of strength. I want to apologize again, he said. For yesterday, for the mockery, for treating you as less than human. I was wrong, completely, utterly, and I'm sorry. Raven studied his face, looking for sincerity, finding it. Apology accepted, but understand something. I don't need your apology for me. I've survived worse than mockery. What I need is for you to carry this lesson forward, to never again assume someone is worthless based on appearance, to never again treat another human being as entertainment, to never again miss the threat because you were too arrogant to see it. I won't, I promise. Good, because the life you save might be your own. The operators filed out, each one processing, understanding the scope of what they were about to experience, the challenge, the humiliation, the education. Chen lingered. Can I ask you something personal? Depends on the question. The nerve damage, the tremors. How do you live with it? How do you keep going when your body has betrayed you? Raven was quiet for a long moment. You adapt. You find new ways to be useful. You accept that the person you were is gone, and you build a new person from what remains. It's not easy. Some days I hate it. Hate the shaking, hate the medication, hate being limited. But then I remember that limited doesn't mean useless. Different doesn't mean less. Broken doesn't mean finished. Do you miss it, being in the field? Every day, every single day. Honesty in her voice, raw, painful. But I'm doing something else now, something maybe more important: teaching, shaping, preventing others from making the mistakes that get people killed. It's not the same as carrying a rifle, but it matters, and mattering is enough. Chen nodded, started to leave, paused. Thank you. For what? For not giving up, for showing us that strength comes in many forms, for teaching us to see what we've been missing. Raven smiled, genuine, warm. You're welcome, now go, you start your new job tomorrow. And Chen, pay attention to everything, because everything matters. Alone in the briefing room, Raven sat down heavily. Let the mask drop. Let the exhaustion show. Her hands trembled harder without the performance, without the need to exaggerate or control. Her phone buzzed. Her father. How did it go? They learned, maybe not everything, but enough to start. And you, how are you? Tired, Dad, so tired. Come to dinner tonight. Let me feed you, let yourself rest. Can't. I have 17 more civilian employees to vet, 3 potential security vulnerabilities to document, and a report to file on the operator's investigation. Raven, you need to rest. I'll rest when I'm dead. Oh wait, I'm already dead. Arlington, remember, empty casket, full honors. That's not funny. It's a little funny. She smiled despite the exhaustion. I'm fine, Dad, really. This is good work, important work. I'm making a difference. You've always made a difference, even when nobody saw it, even when nobody knew. They talked for a few more minutes. Father and daughter, general and operative, family holding together across the gaps created by classified missions and official deaths. When she hung up, Raven looked at the tattoo on her arm, the serpent eating its tail, the eternal cycle, death and rebirth, ending and beginning. She died 7 years ago. Kabul, nerve agent exposure, medical discharge, empty casket in Arlington. But she'd been reborn too, as something else, someone else, not a sniper, not an operator, but a teacher, a guide, a ghost who taught others how to become ghosts. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was better than field work. Maybe teaching 5 operators how to see the invisible was worth more than 63 confirmed kills. Maybe. She stood, grabbed her cleaning cart. Time to resume her cover. Time to be invisible again, because the work never stopped. The mission never ended. And somewhere in this facility there might be a real threat, a real operative, someone who'd learned what she'd learned, who used her methods, who'd become truly invisible. And if that threat existed, she'd find them, because that's what Viper did: hunt ghosts, catch shadows, protect people who never knew they needed protecting. The months passed. The operators completed their training, each one transformed by the experience of invisibility, of being dismissed, of understanding what it meant to be the person nobody noticed. Morrison as a janitor lasted 2 weeks before someone spoke to him, asked his name, showed interest in his story. It was a kitchen worker, older woman, kind eyes. She brought him coffee one morning, asked how he was adjusting, treated him like a human being. He almost cried, because in 2 weeks of being invisible, that simple kindness meant everything. Hayes in the kitchen discovered she loved cooking, actually loved it. The precision, the chemistry, the satisfaction of feeding people. She also discovered how much the kitchen staff knew, because people talked around them, discussed missions, shared information, never thinking the person serving food was listening. Webb in maintenance found that fixing things was meditation, peaceful, grounding. He also found that maintenance workers had access to everywhere, every office, every secure room, every classified space, because something always needed fixing, and nobody questioned the maintenance guy. Chen, as an administrative assistant, learned patience, learned to be pleasant while people treated her as a secretary, as someone to fetch coffee, someone whose intelligence didn't matter because she wasn't a soldier. She also learned that administrative staff were the real power brokers. They controlled schedules, access, information flow. The person managing the calendar controlled the general's time, and controlling time was controlling power. Reeves, as a security guard, learned vigilance, learned to see patterns in how people moved through the facility, learned that the best security wasn't technology or weapons, it was attention, noticing when something was off, when someone acted unusual, when the normal pattern was disrupted. They all learned, grew, changed. And when they came back to Viper program as full operators, they were different people. Better operators, more aware, more humble, more dangerous precisely because they understood how to be underestimated. Raven watched them train younger operators, watched them pass on the lessons, watched them build a culture where everyone was seen, where the janitor mattered, where the kitchen staff were respected, where support workers were recognized as essential. The message spread, beyond Fort Bragg, beyond special operations, throughout the military, a shift in culture, small, gradual, but real. Because 43 of Raven's brothers and sisters were dead. And she'd be damned if more would die because operators were too arrogant to see the threats hiding in plain sight. 1 year later, Morrison invited her to a ceremony. Private, classified, but real. They were dedicating a training facility, naming it after someone who couldn't be officially acknowledged, someone who didn't officially exist. The Viper Training Center, for operators learning unconventional warfare, for soldiers learning to be invisible, for warriors learning that strength came in many forms. And there, in a small moment of unofficial recognition, they gave her something, a plaque. It read, "True strength is invisible until the moment it's needed. Be ready, be humble, be the one nobody sees coming." Raven held it with trembling hands, read the words, felt something break open inside her chest, recognition. After decades in shadows, after years of being invisible, Someone saw her. Someone acknowledged her. Someone said her work mattered. She looked at the operators gathered there. Morrison, Chen, Webb, Hayes, Reeves, dozens more, all of them trained in her methods, all of them carrying forward her legacy. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for seeing me, for learning, for being better than I was, for building something that will outlast us all." "We're not done yet," Morrison said. "There's more." They led her to a memorial wall, names engraved in stone, 43 names, her brothers and sisters, the ones who'd carried the serpent tattoo, the ones who'd operated in shadows, the ones who'd died invisible. And at the bottom, a promise carved in granite. They existed, they served, they mattered, never forget. Raven traced the names with shaking fingers, whispered words only she could hear, promises to the dead, that their sacrifice meant something, that their invisibility was ending, that they would be remembered. The ceremony ended, people dispersed, but Chen stayed behind. "Can I show you something?" She led Raven to a training range, and there, working with a rifle, was a young woman, hands trembling, medical device on her wrist, fighting against her own body to make impossible shots. "Her name is Private Sarah Chen, my niece. She has the same nerve condition you have. The military wanted to discharge her, said she was unfit for service, but I told them about you, about what you've accomplished, about how trembling hands can still hit targets." Chen's voice was thick with emotion. "She's here because of you, because you showed us that different doesn't mean less." Raven watched the young woman train, saw herself 20 years ago, saw the determination, the frustration, the refusal to quit. "Can I work with her?" "She'd be honored." Raven walked onto the range. The young private saw her, snapped to attention. "Ma'am." "At ease, Private. Let me see your stance." For the next hour, Raven worked with Sarah Chen, teaching her breathing techniques, showing her how to work with the tremor instead of against it, demonstrating that the stillness between shakes was enough, more than enough. And when Sarah hit her first 500-yard target, she turned to Raven with tears in her eyes. "I did it. I actually did it." "Of course you did." Raven's smile was dangerous. "Doctors said I'd never shoot again either. Grab a rifle, Private. Let's see what impossible looks like today." As they trained, Morrison watched from a distance, reflected on how much had changed, how much they'd learned, how much they'd grown. The message had spread far beyond their small circle. Military installations around the world reported increased attention to support staff welfare and security. Intelligence agencies quietly recruited from populations they'd previously overlooked. The invisible became visible. The dismissed became valued. But perhaps the most profound change was in the stories told in barracks and mess halls, where once young soldiers boasted of strength and mocked weakness. Now they spoke in hushed tones of the janitor who could have killed them all, the cleaner who chose mercy over vengeance, the trembling hands that never missed. As the sun set over Fort Bragg, Raven worked with Private Chen, patiently guiding her through exercises designed to work with tremor rather than against it. The young woman's hands shook like autumn leaves, but her determination was steel. "Remember," Raven said, adjusting Chen's grip minutely, "your limitation is not your definition. It's just another factor to calculate, like wind or distance. The only real disability is the belief that you can't adapt." Chen took the shot. It wasn't perfect, far from it, but it hit the target, and that was a beginning. "Again," Raven commanded, and Chen smiled through her frustration, understanding that she was being offered something precious. The knowledge that different didn't mean less, that broken didn't mean useless, that strength came in forms the world rarely recognized. Outside, night fell over the facility, guards changing shifts, kitchen staff preparing the next day's meals, janitors beginning their rounds. To any observer, it looked like any other military installation. But for those who knew how to look, who had learned the lesson of the trembling sniper, the truth was different. Every shadow might hide a guardian. Every overlooked worker might be a hero in waiting. Every trembling hand might hold the power to change the world. The cycle continued, eternal as the Ouroboros on Raven's arm, death and rebirth, ending and beginning, the strong teaching the weak to find their hidden strength, the weak teaching the strong the power of humility. In her office, Raven cleaned her rifle with hands that shook but never faltered, preparing for tomorrow's lessons. On her desk, a simple plaque held the words she'd chosen as the Viper program's motto. True strength is invisible until the moment it's needed. Be ready, be humble, be the one nobody sees coming. Her phone rang, secure line. Few people had access to this number. She listened for a moment, then smiled that dangerous smile that transformed her from grandmother to predator. Understood, she said simply. Viper 1 is always ready. She hung up, looked at Private Chen still practicing outside, still fighting against her own limitations with quiet determination. Lessons over for tonight, Raven announced. But if you're interested, there's a situation developing that requires specialized skills. Chen's eyes lit up despite exhaustion. What kind of situation? Raven's smile widened, the kind where nobody expects the cleaning lady. As they prepared to leave, Raven touched the tattoo on her arm, a gesture she'd repeated countless times over the years, the serpent eating its tail, the eternal cycle, the reminder that every ending was just a new beginning in disguise. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats, new opportunities to serve from the shadows, but tonight, in this moment, she allowed herself small satisfaction. The message had been delivered. The lesson had been learned. Respect the janitor. Value the invisible. Never assume you know someone's story based on their surface. And always, always remember, the most dangerous person in any room is the one everyone underestimates. The tremor in her hands continued its endless rhythm as she locked her office and stepped into the night, the brass key rattling softly against the lock. The North Carolina air hung thick with humidity, carrying distant sounds of night training exercises, the pop of blank rounds, the bark of drill sergeants, the rumble of vehicles on maneuver. She paused on the steps, letting her eyes adjust to the darkness. To anyone watching, she was just another aging woman with a medical condition, moving carefully down the stairs, one hand gripping the rail for stability, her graying hair catching the security lights, the messy bun slightly looser after the long day. A pair of young soldiers passed, heading for the barracks after late duty. They glanced at her briefly, the cleaning lady working late again, before returning to their conversation about weekend plans. They didn't notice how her trembling hand had shifted slightly on the rail, finding a grip that could become a weapon mount in less than a second. They didn't see how her other hand rested near her pocket, where the weight of a concealed sidearm pressed against worn fabric. She reached the bottom of the stairs, turned toward the parking lot, just another invisible worker heading home after another invisible day. The sodium lights cast long shadows between the vehicles, creating pools of darkness that most people hurried through without thought. But Raven moved through them deliberately, using each shadow to pause and listen, her trembling hand finding the cool metal of parked cars for support. Her pickup truck waited in the far corner, a weathered Ford that had seen better decades. Rust spotted the wheel wells. Paint faded to an indeterminate color somewhere between blue and gray. To anyone looking, it was the kind of vehicle a janitor might drive. Old, reliable, forgettable. They wouldn't notice the reinforced bumpers, the bullet-resistant glass that caught light just differently enough, the engine that purred with carefully maintained power, deliberately positioned for multiple exit routes, 3 different paths to 3 different gates, though it looked like nothing more than an old vehicle parked in the cheapest spot. She paused at the driver's door, keys rattling in her unsteady grip. The metal jangled against itself, a small symphony of supposed frailty that masked decades of practiced deception. Across the lot, a security camera swept its predictable arc, red eye blinking steadily in the darkness. In 12 seconds, it would point away toward the main gate. She counted the sweep automatically, a habit that would never die, even if her hands would never again be steady enough for the work that had defined her. She waited, patient as always, shoulders slightly hunched in the universal posture of exhaustion, just another tired worker struggling with her keys, fumbling with the simple task of getting home after a long shift. The tremor made the act convincing, though she could have picked the lock in half the time it took to find the right key. Exactly as it should be, until the moment it wasn't. Because Raven Thorne wasn't just a janitor, she was a ghost, a legend, a guardian operating in plain sight, the woman nobody saw coming, the trembling hands that never missed, the broken warrior who refused to quit serving. And somewhere in the darkness, another threat was forming, another mission was calling, another opportunity to prove that dignity doesn't speak loudly, it simply acts. The key turned, the door opened, and Raven Thorne disappeared into the night, invisible, underestimated, exactly where she was most dangerous. Because the most powerful thing about being a ghost, nobody sees you coming until it's already too late.